People do like to see India's defense budget increasing. We are where Europe was during the World War phase. They are less open to talking. What I have noticed as a major difference between Gen Z and the ones that are 45 plus is that there is a huge difference in the risk appetite.
Hey, I want to get this job and I want to do this for the rest of my life. People would probably ask them to see a therapist. Hi everyone, I'm Arpita, the co-founder of Cashvisory. Welcome to another episode of the Cashvisory Podcast. Today we have someone very special with us, Anunay Dash, who is a 26-year-old engineering grad. He started his mutual funds investments at 18 and right now works in business development in one of the most interesting sectors, defense and aerospace. Hi Anunay, welcome to our podcast.
Hi Arpita, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be a part of the Cashvisory podcast.
That's great. We are very excited to hear more from you. So, would love to get started with our conversation about what you're doing currently, about your thoughts on money and finances, and there's so much more. So, let's start from the very beginning. What do you do in your current role?
So I am currently with L&T Precision Engineering and Systems. The it's a, although it has that name, we are mainly into defense and aerospace. So the products range from rocket launchers, artillery systems, naval weapon systems, and even aerospace components. So the role that I'm currently in, I am a part of the international business development department, and I assist business development in Europe. That is what I mainly do. But it has its own intricacies, both domestic as well as international.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure, and especially there's one common background we have is because I studied aerospace, although I didn't really pursue it. That was always a running joke with all my clients
Mhm.
or any of the sessions that we do, right? I always say that finance is not like rocket science, but rocket science is also not that tough because I've done it, right? So I would just have this joke. So yeah, that's really interesting. It's an interesting space, and if not for finance, I would have loved to continue in that space. So right now, what's interesting is that overall in India, there is a lot of interest in defense, and not just because of the environment, but also given the government spending, even in investments point of view, there's a lot more um, focus there, and people want to invest in this sector as well. So I'm sure, the audience would love to know what's going on and. Uh, your role specifically, as I understand, is not exactly on the engineering side, but you do more of, sales and marketing. So can you
Mm.
share a little more about your role?
Although it is quite a hot topic in India right now with all that's been going on over the past couple of weeks, the thing is that we do think of defense and aerospace coming up in India since the Modi government came, but it's actually been an ongoing process for decades. Since the 80s, India has used a lot of indigenous systems, and there has been a huge push for indigenization. This came with the national the I mean when there was a huge period of nationalization. So that's when our government thought, well, if we are making it for retail stuff, why not even do it for defense and aerospace? And eventually, it did help in a lot of ways. So it has led to the nuclear programs going up in India, and also defense and aerospace happen to be a part of it the same way. So after that, the government has been trying to readily act and actively trying to export these systems that are made in India over the past since 2010. And also, if we were to talk about India, India is actually a very very good space for defense and aerospace because the industry and the framework, the legal framework is very structured. And compared to a lot of other nations, we have something like a portal where you can actively monitor leads, not just in India, even abroad. This is not there in a lot of places. And although it is still new and we are learning as we go along, it is a booming industry in India and the world. But if I were to divulge more into it, people do like to see these figures of defense budget, India's defense budget increasing year on year. There's actually a big catch to it. Although it is say $65 billion or and it's increasing yearly. The fact of the matter is that 65 billion, including people on payroll, acquisition of imported goods, and imported defense systems, and just their bilateral exercise, it's all a part of that $65 billion. So although it is growing, it needs to be taken with that pinch of salt. And it's just that we are where Europe was during, in my opinion, where we are where Europe was during the World War phase. So we are still developing, but I think in the in the next couple of decades, I think we'll be able to match them. So in my role, I since I take care of business development activities in Europe, what you can actually see is the major difference between Europe, which has had hundreds of years of experience, and us, which are just coming up now. So although I personally do see this gap being filled, just not so much in the recent future.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point you've made, right? Like the growth, while we are still not ahead of the biggest superpowers, but I think we are getting there, and we have to understand that it's been some 80 years of independence. With that, we have made
Yeah.
such progress. So I think definitely with government's focus and the support of Indians, I'm sure we are looking towards over the next 2 decades, India being at par with some of these the big names that we talk about in the sector, right? So, and I'm sure your experience working in the sector has been very interesting. I'm super curious to know, like, what is the workforce like? What are your colleagues like? What different age groups? And you
Mm.
are a 26-year-old.
Mm.
And I have to say that even at this young age, the opinions and the insights that you have and the perspective, it definitely shows that people around you are, very qualified, and you are in a good circle that uh, you can get this kind of knowledge and experience and this exposure
Yeah.
which helps you build your perspective. So would love to know a little bit about the people around you.
So, as you said, that people around me are quite experienced, and that is quite true. So L&T being a company that has been around since the World War days, L&T dived into defense and aerospace during its inception stages. So the people that were there are still there now, even as if not in direct roles of the company, that they're advising, and they're
Wow.
very very experienced individuals that are driving the path forward. But since that's there, a lot of people from that are quite senior are still around, which would actually increase the average age of the employee in L&T's precision engineering business quite a bit.
Mm.
So I would see myself as one of the youngest people over there, and I think this is to do with a couple of reasons. The first reason that I would say is the turnaround time for these projects. A lot of times these RFI, which is request for information, and RFP, which is request for proposals, when they come out, if also it can take up to 10 years for the proposal to come out, and it can take another 10 years for them to decide on what they want to do. So something that is very very famous in India is the P-75 India program, which is the submarine program, and the Indian Navy wanted to acquire a lot of wanted to acquire submarines from Indian manufacturers. So this program has been going on for decades, and I think this is just a testament to how slow it is, not just in India, throughout the world.
Yeah.
And obviously, the people involved in these projects since its inception as an idea, they obviously want to stay around and see the fruits of their labor. So they
Of
have
course.
decided to stick around. And it's also because it's quite lucrative. Now, this program is around, people are expecting it to, I mean, on paper, it's about 75,000 crores, which is quite a lot of money.
I think the lifetime of the projects definitely kind of
Yes.
uh, impacts the workforce, like who's going to
Yeah.
stick around and what who the company needs to stick around. Very different from the IT or the finance companies or the entire
Mm.
industry as a whole, right? Where it's always
Mm.
the focus is always on the newest talent, the youngest one with the latest
Mm.
skills and latest knowledge of the tools. But
Mm.
this industry, very interestingly, is completely different. Where the more experienced you are and the longer you've worked on the project, I
Mm.
guess your expertise is more valued there. So that's nice.
Mm.
So since you get to be around like people who are of all different ages and mostly older generation, right? There's one thing that you can't avoid talking amongst your peers is something about money and finances, and especially when you
Mm.
see sort of your future. Also, when you see people 20 years, 30 years older to you, there's a lot to take from them. And you have personally been very interested in finance, and our previous discussions have come to know.
Mm.
So I wanted to delve a little deeper into, like, have you seen any kind of differences in terms of the topics? One thing I personally feel that, the older generation is less open to talking about money and finances and investments compared to the younger generation today. Gen Zs, or I'm not
Mm.
sure, Gen Z you can talk about more, but definitely millennials are more open to talking about it compared to boomers. So yeah, like have you had challenges, like or do you are the conversations still open? What are the topics? Yeah, please share.
So yeah, as you did say that they are less open to talking, but since I've been around for a long time, I have warmed up to them, I'd say. And so our conversations around finance, what I have noticed as a major difference between Gen Z, which is me, and the ones that are say 45 plus or 40 plus even, is that there is a huge difference in the risk appetite and also the diversity of portfolios. Since 2020, when I was about 20 years old, I have taken an interest in other financial things. I've always been investing in mutual funds since I was 18, so that is a different part of it. But when I if I'm talking about 2020, which saw the huge Bitcoin boom that happened, so these guys they were very very skeptical of whether how this digital currency is, whether it I mean, because it's something that they couldn't see. um, so they most of them did not get into the Bitcoin wave. So if I were to add on more towards digital stuff, is that they in general are aversive towards buying things digitally as well. I'm sure even when you grew up and you had something to buy online, your parents would obviously be like, "Oh, if is it available offline? We'd rather buy it
Yeah.
offline." It's scary for them to do anything online. So because for them, seeing is believing. And also I think it is probably because they were born in that era. So
Mm,
when you think about stock market, which is the basis for mutual funds as well, in their generations they saw all these scams like the Harshad Mehta scam and whatnot.
mm.
So they have grown up to believe that anything to do with the stock market is quite scary. It has a lot
It's
of
a gamble. I
it's a
hear that all
gamble.
the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, so they've just stuck to the safer options, which is gold and property. Gold and property have been investments that have lasted. I mean, that have gone across for generations. People always said, "Get more land, get more gold. It is just going to go up." So they've just stuck to that. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
And although there is some ground that has been broken in the sense that now they are more open towards investing in mutual funds. And also then we saw the Tata Motors stock skyrocket in 2020. Everybody has been started to increase their investments. And although we've had a major sink in the stock market recently, things are moving up now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. For them, seeing is believing. That's very important. Um, and what actually worked out for them may not work out for us, because how the property appreciated at that point
Mm.
may not be the same trend. Similarly for gold, I think gold, while it's a good asset to have, but it's like in terms of how much it appreciates and how volatile it is. We personally recommend mutual funds for beginners as a better way, and that gold is more of a diversification. In fact, we do add gold ETF into our clients'
Mm.
portfolios as well. And property is something that I feel that you should definitely have it in your portfolio from a diversification point of view. And how much of mutual funds you will keep at the end of the day, right? As you grow
Yeah.
older, I think property, real estate in general, becomes a very important part of your life plan in general as well, right? If you
Mm.
want to like settle down somewhere, get a house, have
Right.
a family, have kids, but it's something that's meant to come later, and not becoming
Yes.
and not to become your first investment, because it locks in a huge amount of money. And I have personally had my uncles, aunties, everyone complain about how difficult it has been for them to liquidate their property investments. Reason being, they hoarded onto these properties when they were young,
Mm.
right? They were like
Yeah.
20s and 30s, and then they had kids. The kids actually moved out. Some of them, a lot of them moved out of India as well. They have taken up foreign citizenship, so they don't have like much of connection from where these
Mm.
properties are. So now they're figuring out like what to do with these assets, and these are
Yes.
highly immobile assets. How do you even make it an inheritance? Now,
Yeah.
even if it's an inheritance, then like how are the kids going to then like go through the hassle when they haven't even like they are not even familiar with the processes in India and the
Mm.
taxes and whatnot. So these are practical challenges that people fail to identify, and probably because it was a time or generation where they could not project, did not have the foresight that this could happen as well. Like even if the your property asset has really appreciated or given good rental yield, although in India I feel that rental yield is really not very attractive, but even then, like how much of a use it is to you as a family or to your kids. So I think that is something that we are all, even in my own family, we are experiencing today. So I think the younger generation, one thing they are doing well or doing better is that they are diversifying better. They are starting off their first few investments in
Mm.
things that are much more liquid, much more
Mm.
manageable. Being open to digital transactions has obviously has had its benefits because the
Yeah.
the Gen Z, Alpha, all of you are digital natives. You have
Yeah.
been born with smartphones around you. For
Mm.
us millennials, I think it had been a huge challenge to just like um, go through
Mm.
that transition. But still, I think we were in that growing up phase when the digital transformation happened, and we kind of picked it up. But for the boomer generation, I can totally imagine how daunting it would be, right? Like
Mm.
I don't think my mom still orders things on Amazon. I don't think she does, and they are very apprehensive. So forget about like doing mutual fund transaction. They still would
Mm.
like to go to a physical branch, but the reality is that that generation is moving out slowly from the wealth space, and
Yes.
the younger generation will take up. So there we are seeing like there will be a lot more popularity of digital assets. And mutual funds and even things like physical assets, tokenization of that, whether it be
Yeah.
real estate, whether it be gold, and then of course not to forget crypto is going to be
Mm.
there, going to be around. So interesting. There's one more thing that I wanted to discuss regarding the older generation. There's this thing called intergenerational aspiration gap. And I think this has manifested in a lot of aspects, like even
Mm.
in terms of choosing a career. You would realize that the older generation would have obviously wanted long-term, stable, secure career. They want to
Yes.
enter a company and they want to retire from there. But you would have never heard millennials or especially people in your generation, Gen Z, to be talking about, hey, I want to get this job and I want to do this for the rest of my life. That would be
Yeah.
so unheard of. People would probably ask them to see a therapist if they say things like
Yeah.
that, right? Like why would you want to do the same thing for your whole
Yeah.
life? There's so much to explore. So that manifests, that aspiration gap manifests in
Mm.
all kinds of different aspects of life. But in finances, how do you see that difference, right, coming from like for your mom's generation or your colleagues, compared to, let's say, an older cousin who is probably a millennial, and then to compared to you?
So what I would say is that I personally can't be a testament to that. But what I do see with a lot of my friends is that they're expecting a lot of quick returns in
Mm,
anything that they do, be it an investment, a business. They only, I mean, what my friends like to see is quick money, and it should be, I mean, they are not willing to take any losses. And this, although it can be there for some cases, it can be it is a bit short term, because they've seen a lot of movies and the influence of social media that is there, where they see that, okay, high risk high reward, and that has been like a very very common statement throughout the ages. So they try to bring that into real life, and a lot of times I have seen them suffer, be it in a stock that they saw online,
mm,
or an investment in a property that had no scope of going up. So yeah, so they are influenced a lot of ways, and they do look at short term goals. But whereas when it comes to the older generation, I feel they are more resilient, and they believe in the power of small gains.
mm.
They'll stick around with a particular thing and wait for it to fructify, even if it's after they retire.
Yeah.
Uh, So yeah, that is the major difference that I see. But I also see what I also see is that the younger generation is more educated on financial matters.
That's
Um,
true.
in what way? In the way I see it is that we are all very concerned about inflation, and whatever portfolios that we hold, the primary aim would be to beat inflation. So we want to see and at least, so we have set goals for ourselves. So we want to see about 20% increase in, at least a 20% increase in our mutual fund portfolio, at least a 25% increase in our stocks portfolio. And as you said, we don't really invest in property. There's the biggest reason being is that it's quite expensive, and people like us that have just started out in our careers, we won't be able to fund it. So yeah, so these are the goals that we go up with. And what's interesting is that we are also very educated in the amount of tax that we are paying.
Mm.
So as salaried individuals, we are very specific and very informed about the taxes that we pay. Um, and but whereas if I were to see like my mom who does work as a professional, she hasn't really been paying much too much attention to her taxes at this age. uh, yeah, so that is the major difference that I see. And yeah, as you said, it's mainly being having a diverse portfolio and not chipping in, putting all eggs in one basket.
Yeah,
So
I think
there are
definitely the
multiple
awareness.
baskets. Yeah.
Yeah, the awareness is definitely way better, and thanks to the age of internet, right? And that has made it
Mm,
possible. I don't think without the internet anyone would have been had
mm,
that motivation to go to a library and pick up a
mm,
finance book, or a bookshop and pick up a finance book.
mm,
So used to be the dissemination of financial information used to be in very close settings and very fragmented, and so I think they didn't even have that choice, but today we have that
mm,
access and that choice, and I think the younger generation is using it really well. And that's what Cashvisory's mission as well.
mm,
That's where it comes in, because we want to make sure that every young Indian gets started with their wealth building process, because now we have the access to the best information, to the best tools out there. Although at times, that information can lead to information overload, right? Because there's a plethora of information online when you just go and Google something, or now, like, you do an AI search. Um, so
mm,
I think there needs to be like a lot more streamlining. There needs to be a very strong fintech player who can provide that guidance in the right manner, in a regulated manner, with some accountability. Because when you just get financial advice from Google or ChatGPT or whatever AI tools you're
mm,
using, there's no
mm.
accountability. They can just give you whatever, and then
Yeah.
you can't go back to anyone and complain
Mm,
about it. So that's the gap Cashvisory is trying to fill, right? And we personally have seen like a great response from the youngsters.
mm,
Even when we do college sessions, so the college students haven't even started earning, and they have so
mm,
much more knowledge, and the kind of questions that they come up with, it's just amazing to see. Now coming to since we're talking about the youngsters,
mm,
as we kind of close this discussion and wrap this
mm,
up, any advice that you would like to give to other 25, 26-year olds, given that it's just been maybe a couple of years since you started working?
mm,
um, any kind of tips, or I think let's keep it the best money habit that you would want them to build. We have talked about diversification, we have talked about having goals, and it seems like you do a lot of things
mm,
for your own finances. So what would you like to
mm.
share with the 25-year-olds?
So what I would say is limit your spending on e-commerce apps, even something like Amazon or even Swiggy or Zomato, and keep aside about 15% of your monthly income for savings. And these savings, by savings, I do not mean let them sit inside your bank account. I mean invest it into mutual funds, stocks, or but definitely avoid property at this time.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah,
we are with you. A certain percent of
yeah.
your income should go into savings and
Mm,
investments. Investments definitely. Property is
mm,
really something that comes in later. So
yeah.
we do hope that the younger generation picks up on that and one day does
Mm,
own a lot of properties and other assets. But right now is not
mm,
the best time, right? And
mm,
build up your portfolio, start young, and the effect of compounding is something that we cannot stop talking enough
yeah.
about, because just starting 10 years later can reduce your retirement corpus to half. So you can only
Mm,
imagine that, time is the real money out here. So get
Yes.
started ASAP. So completely with Anunay out here for whoever is that's watching. So thank you so much,
Mm.
Anunay. It's been great having you on the podcast, and I would like to continue our discussion offline for sure. But this is all for today. So thank you everyone for watching. Stay tuned and like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you all for joining. Please, like, share, and subscribe.